Hey guys, how's it all going? Ali, are you there? And Darren, while we
Lily's
wait for.
here. She's just waiting on her video.
Okay, no worries. I'll just get us started. Great talk so far. I can't even remember if we are the ultimate session or the penultimate one, but I'm definitely very optimistic with regards to all of the things that have been spoken about here. Very great to see that AI is covered in part of the previous talks as well. This intersection is something that working in the space, as my colleague that you saw before, Arturo, and I do at Not Centralized, we see a lot of work in the AI space, a lot of work in the blockchain space, and there's definitely people that need to learn more about the ways that blockchain can do and provide security over here. It was mentioned in just the previous talk about Services Australia and the government testing out decentralized IDs. And there were two examples that have been published late last year, early this year, with a GP in Brisbane, as well as the Commonwealth Bank doing something in that space. So I think it's really important that we have more of these experiments. We had Brad on earlier talking about Project Acacia and what we're doing there. And given that these are all really interesting emerging tech pieces, I think it's important that we highlight that these things do not exist in a vacuum, that blockchain and AI do come together. It's not just meme coins and AI agents, as people have seen, but there's a whole lot more behind the scenes there. So working across this space, the thing that is really interesting is seeing how people are realizing more about security and what that can do for AI systems that are being built. As Scott mentioned earlier before, how AI agents can play a really strong part in basically getting things done and seeing how each other does that work, how these AI agents can act in an ecosystem, but as long as there is human oversight, I think that's key. Just checking if we've had Ali come through. I think we're just connecting to audio there. And Darren, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Fantastic. I am FOMOing because both yourself and Ali are over there, as in outside of Australia, not just up north in Queensland.
Yes.
How's your trip, Darren?
It was long. It was a very long trip. I'm in Denver now. I left at 6 o'clock this morning, Monday morning, and just like got in a couple hours ago.
Okay, fantastic. And Ali, I can see you there. How's your sound?
Good, I hope.
Okay,
How's my
very
sound?
good.
You tell
Um,
me.
I'll get you guys to do
Hey, Dad.
intros to yourselves.
Nice to see you, Hallie.
Ali, if I could get you to start
Yeah,
off,
wait.
and I'm going to share some links.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, oh, I thought you meant me and Darren, but we've met.
Please introduce yourself to the crowd. I'm sure everyone here knows you, but I guess just if this is recorded would be great for the recording.
Yes, we are
Sure.
live.
Oh, we're live now?
Yes.
That's good information to have. Hello, everyone. Apologies. I'm Ali. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a project called the LilyPad Network. I previously worked at Protocol Labs, and before that, I worked at IBM in Australia as well. So I've been in the kind of crypto space for a while and been following along with AI for quite a while too. I actually worked on an AI ops project back in my first role at Accenture, straight out of my mechatronics degree. So it's a come full circle, and I'm really loving that both of my passions are combined now, and for something really useful as well, not just for no reason.
Absolutely. D Darren, over to you.
Hi, folks. I'm Darren Rogan. Today I'm representing Vana. I'm ecosystems at Vana, but for some of you may already know me on the call. I've been involved in the ecosystem for a few years. I live on the Gold Coast up in sunny Queensland. I'm in Denver at the minute, at East Denver. But yeah, I've been doing startups AI for about 15 years. And I joined Vana about 6 months ago when I won an AI hackathon that Art happened to be the judge with. And I've been doing ecosystems, and we launched a token, and we announced today CZ joined as an advisor.
Saw that.
Wow.
Very exciting over there at Vana. I'm
Mhm.
also at East Denver, so shout out to
I shall
Denver.
see you here. Also see you soon, Ali.
You guys just keep adding to my FOMO. What is this? Okay, we can beat up on Mark later, but I want to get straight into the questions because we've only got 30 minutes. Ali, over to you, and let's talk about AI compute in a decentralized world. Now, we all know that AI models are demanding more and more, enormous amounts of power and energy, and you guys are tackling that with your distributed compute challenge, sorry, the distributed compute challenge. What role do you see that decentralized networks play in making AI truly accessible, and what do you think of the limitations?
Yeah, that's a big question rolled into one there. If we look at kind of the state of AI at the moment, AI kind of needs two main things: data, hello Vana, and compute to run, and it needs good data and the ability to access the right kind of compute when it needs that compute. And I don't think there's actually a shortage of GPU. I read something today about this, like being almost $1 trillion invested by the four hyperscalers, mostly in NVIDIA GPUs, or will be over the next few years, which is just a crazy number of hardware that we're getting out there to cater for the demand. I don't think, I still am not sure that that's going to cater for the demand, but the point really here is why is decentralization better? And I think we can go back to some of the properties of decentralization firstly, for those of you that are maybe coming from, one of those hyperscalers or one of those cloud companies. Why is decentralized better? Decentralization useful. Resilience is one reason. So you can always find an on-demand GPU if you have a decentralized model. Of incentives are more aligned. So you can run this GPU, well, localities also. You don't necessarily have to have a GPU data center or be one of those or cloud companies that have these set up in different regions in the world. So it's possible that you'll have a GPU closer to you. So you might be able to, have a more regional GPU. So there's some of the kind of, more traditional reasons for decentralized compute. But for AI specifically, I think decentralizing the architecture, and I think Darren will have a lot to say about this as well, is absolutely essential. If we are going to have AI be open, be accessible, be user-owned, I think is the right word, or community-owned. And I think it needs to be. We're not going to have just a Silicon Valley model of the world, or some other model of the world. If we look at how we're even getting stuff on the internet now, are you actually going to internet sites now, or are you just reading that AI description for most things and not going to any of those pages anymore and believing it? So I think fundamentally we're breaking kind of the incentives of the internet as well. That's something Chris Dixon is very big about. So if we don't build these decentralized alternatives to these clouds, we end up with the same state of things that we have now with AI. And AI is going to change so many things in our world over the next 5-10 years. I think your head's under a rock if you don't think it's going to fundamentally affect our daily lives, how we work, cooperate. And sorry for going on for so long. So it's essential that we have kind of these open systems as well, kind of like the Tim Berners-Lee quote about the internet being open and accessible back in the day. The same thing needs AI and ML, and that needs the right infrastructure, the right data, the right compute. So I'll leave it at that. So, open to questions.
That's very good, and it does lead into the stuff that you're doing over there at Vana, Darren. And I do like to hear, Ali, as you mentioned there, the pioneers of the space. Like, we always start off with good incentives with these new technologies, and somehow they get bastardized along the way. Mark Monfort 2025 quote right there. But Darren, over to you. Vana is pioneering a new data economy where you've got it that individuals can monetize their data. Very important. What does a decentralized kind of marketplace mean for AI model training, right? And how do we ensure more of these like fair incentives? Could you tell us a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, if I just touch on what Ali was saying at the end of hers, like a lot of those were like closed source, like OpenAI is actually closed AI. It's not OpenAI at all. And we had to get like a Chinese AI to drop an OpenAI being DeepSeek. So this like opening up of AI, rather than it being a black box that we just have to trust, that we can inspect and we can understand, means that it's more secure and more robust for everyone. And I think taking those types of open source models and then bring them to decentralized networks is about having that sort of balancing act to centralization and potentially corruption or collusion. And if you think about, third-party actors, you want to be in the fairest system that you can have. So I think that that adds a lot of value in there. And if I take that one step forward to data, like we have what's called the data wall, which is all the internet data that existed before AI bots started filling it full of nonsense, right? And most of that has been captured and has been used to train these foundational models and distilled models, like DeepSeek's actually a distilled model of OpenAI, who's complaining about them stealing their data, which they stole off the internet. So, there's interesting ways about how do we do that. So moving forward, where does the unique data come from and where does that specialty data? Because I think that you're going to have like 1,000 AIs that are specialistic rather than this one generic generalized AI that's going to know absolutely everything. So when you really look at those specializations, the secret sauce is in the data. Okay. And that data is still currently owned by those Web2 companies, the Facebook, the Twitters. You look at how quick Grok has come out and it's done spectacularly well with being able to source an enormous amount of graphics cards, one that small players like us would not be able to achieve. So having scaling systems like LilyPad and other offerings to be able to like spin out to get access to that compute, I think is very important. And having like a really good data set. So the Twitter data set, think of it as what you may about the actual data set, but it in itself is a very large corpus of information. Like Vana, for example, has got like Reddit data set, which is like an export of Reddit, and that has been sold and been used. And in that scenario, the users are actually paid directly for their data. So we also talking like DeSci and some other mechanisms, but like I believe that data may be the unique, the universal basic income of the future, and tools like Vana aid you in that value capture. I don't want to go, I don't know how technically you want me to go, Mark, but I think that that sort of is a nice way of explaining it. You put your data together in a group ownership model, and then we have partners and tools that allow people to do data access on those. And then we've got commercialization and hackathons. We've actually got a hackathon starting next week with $50,000 worth of prizes. If anyone wants to jump on and have a look, check out the Vana Twitter. You're more than welcome to come on and play with some of the data sets, build some of the AI agents. But we think it's a critical importance of like a building block to actually create value exchange through the whole network. And that's what we're trying to do at Vana.
Love it. And yeah, congratulations again on getting the one and only CZ on board there. Probably better that he's able to do it now. It might have been a bit harder a few months ago for him. But and the hackathon, I think that there's nothing better than being able to drive adoption than through doing these sorts of incentives, build-a-thons, hackathons, sandboxes, and really just getting the education out there. Going back to the overall thing with all of this is that AI and generative AI, and obviously to my old school kind of folks, like AI is something that's been around for 70 years, but we're talking about generative AI here when it all really came out to the world, and the issues that it's facing around adoption stems from a lack of education and understanding. And I think, with all of the stuff we're talking about here and what you both are doing in your missions, it is driving that. So we'll dive back into Vana in a little bit, but let's go back to you, Ali. Decentralized compute networks, like what you guys are doing with LilyPad, there's this GPU monopoly problem that AI faces today. How do you look at tackling that, solving that? How can you bring in, the blockchain techniques, the things that we understand from having worked in this space, to help these potential problems?
Yeah, look, I think this is something that blockchains and crypto is uniquely good at, and that's the network effect, right? I think I've heard it described by Delphi Digital as, or originally from a book called The Tower and the Square. Crypto is very good at creating the square, which is like spreading out these incentives and value layers. AI itself currently, its centralized format is the opposite. So it's being controlled by the tower, basically. But I wanted to go back to if we can provide this open access as well. I think you kind of touched on a point here. It's almost to me like when, and I don't know how many people remember this, when Arduinos came out and kind of fundamentally changed how we interacted with hardware initially. As soon as the Arduino open source variety came out, and then Raspberry Pis after that, and obviously I think the Jensen now as well. It's pretty fascinating. But as soon as all the open access chips came out, all of a sudden, tinkerers around the world or SMEs around the world were able to provide value to this open system. And that's fundamentally what myself and Vana as well are looking to try and create. And that's something that crypto does incredibly well. That's distribute value, right? We kind of dub it the Shopify of AI. We have the deep inside, that compute side on one hand, and anyone can participate in that network, right? That includes people with centralized GPUs. I think I heard a figure from an insider not too long ago that 20 to 40% of GPUs that are actually in these centralized data centers are not being used at any one time. So why would they not then monetize those on decentralized systems if they could? I think the answer is they probably would, given the right privacy guarantees, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, and the second side of our model really is in providing MEs across the world in things like, and I Darren touched on DeSci before, which is something we absolutely love. At LilyPad, my co-founder is a BioML researcher, and it has inflicted by a rare disease. So solve kind of problems is very a bit of a passion for us. If you can combine data into a model, then an SME that can then monetize, so it can still be open access to anyone that wants to use it. You can find new proteins on that. You can create new incentive layers. And that's, again, what crypto is really good at, distributing this value. And that's something that we're hoping to create as well. And you then solve problems because someone like a rare disease scientist who has specific knowledge, has been studying for 10 years, has two options at the moment for AI monetizing their AI models or their data. One is proprietary. You go down a proprietary route, you're owned by whatever pharma company, or you open source it and you live on beans and toast, like you're a starving artist, right? That's contributing massive value to society. I think there's a middle ground here where those people can be celebrated and can earn money for what they're contributing to society while still having those breakthroughs. So that's something that we're kind of trying to do by bringing together better incentives across and coordination across these three layers, which is like compute, the models themselves, and then the user. So, and then, hopefully we tie into bigger systems like Vana, which we've definitely spoken about already with Darren and the team. And then you have this bigger stack, a bigger building block, bigger decentralized AI that you can see playing out that gives value to everyone, providing value to the system rather than being extractive, and also gives better oversight, have more provenance, where the data is coming from, for example, where the models are coming from. You can, you have better oversight, and the community decides which ones it wants to use and support them. And, back to Arduino and IoT, I don't know.
No, that's great. I really like the Arduino kind of thing. I haven't heard that argument when it comes to like blockchain or AI, but it's absolutely true. Like it was that moment out there. I had an ex, getting into my kind of social history, but because I worked in tech, it was like, oh, go talk to my dad. He knows you work in tech. He wants to show you something. It was Arduinos capturing weather data and like he's got the dashboards and stuff like that. But it just opened up the doors to people that couldn't do that kind of stuff before.
Yeah, amazing. And that's like what Power Ledger and Helium and people like that are doing with them now. It's just it's so good. And I think we're at another point in time where that can happen with AI as well. So yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned DeSci. We had Steph Basley on before, and she's been a big proponent of that. And I think we probably prefer the term starving degens when it comes to working in Web3.
Starving regions, maybe.
Oh yeah, exactly. Darren, I've got a question for you, but did you want to add some further stuff just based on what we've been riffing off there?
Look, I have been involved in some previous AI projects and had provenance issues with some of the data, some of the MRI data that we were processing with some AI models in a previous company. Well, it was a friend startup. So I think that, the blockchain around that provenance of data is actually going to become more and more important as trying to figure out how we can leverage these data sets in higher and higher ways. So, we're talking about like a starving scientist, anyone who does science, it's not generally a highly profitable thing. So if we can bring tools like data collection that's easy for them to use and they're able to do mass collections and then be able to process that in secure ways and have proof of provenance. I think that that can really help them, attain their goals with a lot less effort. And then I hope that reduction in costs can then run through to better science, cheaper and better.
Absolutely. And let's talk further about democratizing AI because the question I had for you was on that topic and how can we do that if the training data still sits with the centralized giants? And I know that you've gone into what Vana's like doing there, but I want to dive into that more. Whether you choose to do it from a technical aspect or just more from the features, what models of data ownership could disrupt this status quo, do you think?
Yeah, look, the largest data sets have just been scraped. Anthropic are known for potentially not respecting robots to TXT and sucking a whole bunch of information. So we are getting a lot of pushback of like, where does that value come from? Like AI at the end of the day is a statistical pattern machine, and it is finding those patterns in data that exists and belongs to someone. So how do we make sure that that value capture is not centralized into, a giant conglomerate who is primarily, having an economic monopoly on hardware and data access? So we do that because there's now laws that are set in most countries that say you own your data because the internet is made up of users' data, which is held by generally like, Web2 companies, but you actually own that information. The same in India, the same in Europe. So the thing is that you just feel disempowered. You're not aware that that can actually be used. So you can, give that data away to someone for free or a competitor where Facebook or Google or Instagram or whichever sort of social network which currently holds all your information, like Twitter, for example, and we get our like a Reddit data die as well. Like they can take data sets and like give it to startups in a deal that Reddit themselves would never do, or a scientist would never do. Like the Reddit data die itself actually got the terms and conditions of Reddit changed because they were giving their data sets to scientists who wanted to run stuff, and Reddit wanted to get paid, but then they changed the terms and they're now making it freely available. So like I think that there's change in the world, and even if like say like LilyPad or Vana itself is not successful, we're trying to nudge the world in a way where that true value exchange occurs. And I think it's a counterbalance to like the maximum centralization. Like regulators like centralized one player to tell what to do versus like what we would want, which is more like highly secure, decentralized, resilient systems. And I think those options need to be in the market in order for that to make a difference. So like, we're still very early on Vana. I'm not going to say that the world is changing tomorrow. Let me be clear. But I think we have to demonstrate a better way of doing it, a better way of collecting that data, making it accessible for others. And just to be clear, it's not just Web 2. We do have like Tesla cars, for example. People are monetizing their Tesla videos. And I think that deal's being done. I can't tell you exactly what that is, but that data die, which is a collection of people, those owners, there's a deal being done for a monthly access to those for other sort of self-driving cars. So it sort of like breaks down these monopolies and sort of spreads that a bit further. So I like it like it's almost open sourcing or open access probably, so that we don't have these sort of barriers to innovation. So I'm very positive about it.
I like it. You mentioned the Reddit stuff before. Please do not look up my username, just given that you have all my data. I joke. But it is really interesting there. And given the topic, and it's been mentioned in a few previous chats, agentic AI workflows, not worrying about the definitions, and Anthropic have a really good video and blog on this, but I want to dive into agents and just what both of your thoughts are. I'll go to you first, Ali, but as we move into this agentic economy where we see AI systems interact, transact, make decisions on our behalf, etc., how do you think decentralization plays a role in ensuring that these agents do act in our best interests? Oh, you're on mute.
For the first part, long live the agent. I want co-pilots for everything, please. I want a digital twin doing my socials. I hate that stuff. I want someone running my business. I want these things to do work for me, right? So long live the agents. From my side of things, bring on AI. It's going to make our society way more productive, which is going to be another interesting side effect. For the second part, in decentralizing the agents, I'm not sure about that question. I can give maybe a view on why I think crypto and agents are kind of a perfect pairing, or blockchain and agents. And I think the main reason here is payment rails for agents specifically, and also then you do get the kind of transparency of what these agents are doing if they're checking in with smart contracts, right? You get a transmutable ledger of what they're up to. But I think the payment rails of blockchain particularly are suited to agents. You can't bank an agent. You can't go down to the Commonwealth Bank and say, hey, my agent would like a bank account, please. You're good with that, right, guys? The answer is no. We saw what they did with anyway, another oligopoly Lily there. But yeah, I in terms of decentralized architecture for agents, I think it is going to be important for I think a lot of agents are able to run locally already. I think if you do want an agent that can run across, like do batch work across several different GPUs, that's where LilyPad can really provide support. And I think another thing for agents is we're seeing agents want models that are, jailbroken. And it's not because they want to, there's all sorts of nefarious reasons people come up with when they say, oh, and this is because, it's been well marketed to be concerned about the ethics of AI. But I think one of the big reasons people want jailbroken models is just because they swear and things like that, right? They want a roasted model. So you can have censorship resistant models on LilyPad as well, and that's another reason that we can support the agent kind of workflow to run as well. So there are a couple of reasons that we see agents being important. And yeah, if someone could build me a digital twin, I don't have time to do it, but I really need one. That'd be great.
Yeah, we're on it. We're on it, aren't we, Darren? Darren, what are your thoughts on all that?
Look, I concur with a lot of the AI agenty stuff. I am also building the things to replicate myself as well. I've got AI agents running on Twitter, which are trained off my Twitter. So taking my Twitter, using that to create like a similar one. The only issue was it was telling me to do too many events that I didn't have time to, so I had to turn it off. Because I'm a little busy and it's going, you need to do a meetup. So I had to tell it just to calm down a little bit. But bringing it back to like, will agents be a powerful thing? I think yes, they will. And the big bit is that they're almost like specialists on a subject. So, as we go to this general versus specialized, having, one agent that's looking after a few agents, double checking people's work, making sure, because hallucinations occur. Okay. So we need to figure out a way to deal with those. And this agent mechanism creates this externalized sort of validation and like double checking, which means you can get a significantly better outcome at the end than just trying to do any pipeline management or any sort of prompt engineering that you want. It's that sort of separation of ration and reason that I find to be sort of like particularly useful, like almost like a adversarial generative network, but sort of with agents, if you want to think of it like that. It's not exactly that, but just logically, having a team of agents is better than having a single agent. I think there's been, a bit of a casino game on the agent launch pads, like don't get me wrong, and a lot of them have been sort of overly speculative. But I do feel that more and more agents being able to interact with a bearer asset, paying for what they need as they need it. I think Ali already mentioned this, that, having a credit card bill is actually quite annoying because you don't know how much you're going to get paid, so having this prepay mechanism, open access to like a fabric of sort of skills, of activities that can be sort of brought together, I think is sort of fascinating. And I think there's projects that are starting to look at how to create not just agents, but sort of features and function skill sets and like swarms. So I'm very bullish on this as a sector, and them having like personalities and having specializations, and they all get driven again from that data access. So when you're creating like an agent, you're giving it like a persona, so you're trying to say you are this type of person with this type of skill set. So you can sort of like think of them as like mini employees, not very good employees, let me be clear, but like little tiny robots, little automatons. And I think that they will get better and better over time. And I think with reinforcement learning, with the right type of data injection, and then continued sort of evolution of access. And I'm a big fan of open source data. So it not just being locked in Claude. I know Claude have got a brand new model out that looks pretty nice, but it's the fact that we can sort of take that value and then make sure that it's consistently going to work and that we can build businesses on it and we don't have sort of external exogenous risks. I think that that's a big piece for the success of the industry moving forward.
Absolutely agree. And as you mentioned there with the payments mentioned twice, that is definitely the lowest hanging fruit in terms of what we could do with blockchain and AI. I do wonder how soon we'll have that day when it comes to your credit card bill and it's like, was it the wife? No, it was the agent spending something on, your credit card, but it justifies it and it argues really well because it's AI. But hallucinations, reducing those, I think having multi-agent swarms, as you put it, that's definitely going to help because controlling the context and controlling the execution steps has been proven to reduce hallucinations whenever anyone wonders. But just as we've got 30 seconds each, Ali, some final thoughts before we have to wrap up and get yanked? Mute? You're on
Yep,
mute.
yep.
There we go.
Thank you. Look, I'm really excited about the next 1 to 2 years, and I think decentralized AI makes a lot of sense. I think we're going to see a trend towards more and more of this open access compute, open access data, or user-owned data. I think is a better term, or community-owned data and compute happening. And I honestly think this is a turning point for where we're heading. I think these centralized models are finding more and more that they don't have a moat around AI, and it's going to be a really fascinating next few years. 1 to 2, and then further out from that, 5, 10. It's going to radically transform our society as well. So, yeah, can't wait.
Okay. And Darren, off to you.
Yeah, I concur. Like, I think that, we're at a bit of a crux in the future. What is it going to look like? Is it going to be centralized monopolies with giant data centers, or can we sort of create an alternative option? And even as I mentioned before, even if it just, competition keeps the other person honest player, if you understand what I mean. But I think having these sort of compute networks, having these open source data sets and open source models allows like entrepreneurs from across the globe to build valuable products. Like I'm super excited about media because the media is going to change dramatically. I'm doing some video generation stuff and I just look at that going like people are not aware what's going to come. They're overestimating it in the short term, but they're underestimating it over the next couple of years. So they'll see a model and go like, oh, that doesn't look good. But 3 weeks later, there's a better model. 4 weeks later, there's a better model. So I think the future's bright and the future's AI.
Future is now. Darren, Ali, thank you for dialing in from your trips. You've just both arrived. It's amazing the wonders of technology. Arturo is adding more stuff in there into the chat, so please do read. And yeah, I didn't see any questions coming through, but I'll hand it back to the Deca crew.